For real though, sometimes Shakespeare quotes feel more prescient than others, and I think this is one of those times. Not because of the metaphorical meaning of the quote, but because when all things are lost to madness, sometimes the world literally becomes a stage, which happens to be exactly what happens to the mind of Gloria Von Gutten, former actress turned mental patient at Thorny Towers Home for the Disturbed. Welcome back to my deep dives into the many worlds of Psychonauts. This week, we're taking a look at Gloria's theater, the mind of Gloria Von Gutten. If this is your first deep dive of mine, then hello, welcome. Feel free to watch this episode or jump back to the start and watch the whole series, or maybe just put the whole playlist on shuffle and watch them in a random order. That could be fun. This is also your once per episode warning that there will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't played the game yet, please go and play it before watching. I'm serious. It's such an amazing game and it deserves all your attention, even 20 years after its release. Now, with that out of the way, I'm gonna go get off of your screen and make my way to the stage, where someone of my prodigious talent obviously belongs. I need to get this out of the way right now. I'm willing to bet that Gloria's theater is the most hated world in Psychonauts. Or maybe most hated isn't the right way to describe it. Maybe just the least liked? There are a lot of reasons for that. The level can feel needlessly tedious at times if you don't know what to do. The level can also feel extremely repetitive due to the requirement of trial and error on your first playthrough. Unless you're following a guide, which makes this level a walk in the park. And you didn't hear this from me, but I kinda recommend playing this level with a guide. I am one of those people who actually really likes Gloria's theater. Not to say that it isn't at least a little tedious and can be a little bit grating on the ears, but from an aesthetic standpoint, I think that Gloria's theater is incredibly strong, especially because of the way it represents the mind of Gloria Von Gutten, who is suffering from some kind of bipolar disorder. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's actually talk about Miss Gloria Von Gutten, famed actor of the stage. As Raz heads into Thorny Towers, Gloria is the first person we bump into. Well, after Boyd, of course, but Gloria blocks our path, and a short cutscene plays where we get a little taste of her character. Gloria thinks that she is still on the stage, performing away to a massive audience of potted plants with faces drawn on the pots. It's weird, but not exactly threatening or anything. Yet. Next to Gloria, we could see an almost claw-like looking statue that just shimmers in a way that makes you want to pick it up. But if you do, things get a little bit crazy. It's interesting to note here that the next 3 minds I'm going to be talking about can be done in any order, but I'm choosing to tackle them in the order that we really meet them. But the fact is, the claw-like statue, I guess this world's version of a Tony Award, is part of a quest to disguise ourselves like Dr. Lobato to sneak into his lab. But we don't actually know this yet, so it can feel a little odd that they introduce the claw to us before we even know what to do with it. It doesn't really matter all that much though. If we go to grab the claw, Gloria reacts nicely at first, talking to Raz about the award, but on the drop of a hat, she suddenly gets very angry and accuses Raz of not thinking she is deserving of the award. That is our first taste of Gloria's mind at work. I said it earlier, but it appears to be some form of bipolar disorder, or if not that, something that comes with rapid mood swings. I'm not a doctor, and I cannot give an actual diagnosis here, but as we go on, my assumption seems to be a fair one. In opposition to the way Gloria looks on the outside, with this wild Medusa-like hair, the inside of her brain looks shockingly normal. Gloria's theater, at least for the main section of the level, is absolutely tiny, but the devs were really smart and made use of the space in a really creative way. The bulk of the area is hidden away behind different sets and moods. I truly think this level was Double Fine at their most experimental and creative, at least at this point in their career as a game company. The premise of the level is that Gloria's mind is a theater, constantly replaying 2 shows, one happy and one sad, which focus on the life of Gloria Von Gutten. The problem is that neither show can shine because Bonita Soleil, who is Gloria's personal sunshine, refuses to take the stage, and when she does, she is attacked by the despicable Phantom. This is where I think most people's annoyance and dislike of the level comes in. To progress in the level, you need to find play scripts and have the actors perform the plays on the correct stage to eventually find the right show to bring down a hot air balloon so you can access the catwalks above and stop the Phantom. There is, for sure, tedium in the process of switching the stages and the trial and error of swapping the mood of the play until you finally get it right. Pair that with the plays themselves, which are poorly acted and extremely over the top, and can be a bit annoying. To be totally fair to the purpose of the level, though, that's exactly the point.
Yes, Gloria, my daughter. I only live to make you happy.
So it's here that I will make my defense of Gloria's theater as a level, and as an exercise in empathizing with Gloria Von Gutten, whose tragic past constantly keeps her from being happy. I also should preface, at the time I first played Psychonauts, I was a theater kid. That shouldn't have much impact on this deep dive, but I am biased in a certain way that makes me love the setting of this level. So here we go, a deep dive and defense of what I think many people might call Psychonauts' worst level. We need to get right to the heart of Gloria Von Gutten, the person, and what better way to start than by exploring the 2 memory vaults found inside Gloria's theater. The first one, which is found very early in the level before any of the theater nonsense, is called Gloria's Cruel Training. We see Gloria's mom, who will become more important momentarily, dropping Gloria off at Hagatha's Home for Girls, which is one of the 2 settings for the plays produced in Gloria's mind. At Hagatha's home, the girls are forced into the arts. We see Gloria being forced to dance, sing, and act, all while the headmistress constantly whips the girls. It's an over-exaggeration, but it harkens back to the way child actors have faced abuse in Hollywood. Not just by directors or others on set, but by parents who force their kids into the arts as a way to live out dreams they could never achieve. It can be an extremely toxic environment for kids who are exploited for money or fame by proxy. If you want to get a deeper look into that world, I highly recommend Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mom Died. It isn't a happy book at all, so be warned, but it shares a lot of the elements that we see Gloria going through in her training, although in a much more real and horrific way. I also want to point out how sad Gloria looks throughout the memory vault, until it reaches a point near the end where another girl starts being the subject of the headmistress's abuse, and Gloria finally becomes a star. It's almost like Gloria became numb to the abuse around her. It just became a part of the road to stardom, but at the same time, the abuse led to deep-seated trauma for Gloria, which wouldn't come out until much later in her life. What's funny, in a sad way, is that my speculation here is confirmed by watching the plays about Gloria's life. Everything from the way that Gloria was treated at Hagatha Home, to the way that Gloria's mother was using her daughter for fame, which may even point towards a history of mental illness in her family.
Goodbye, my previously dear mother. I flee now to Europe to escape your insane jealousy over my amazing career. Please do not leave me, Gloria, my daughter. Go now, and I shall do something unto myself both drastic and traumatizing to you emotionally.
Also, yes, the acting in these plays is terrible, and I think it comes down to the way that Gloria looks at herself, fully punctuated by the character Jasper, who is a critic that sits in the balcony, always watching the plays. Jasper is also the Phantom, but we haven't really talked about that much yet. We'll get there, I promise, once I finish talking about Gloria. So the second memory vault, titled Gloria's Fallen Star, shows the moment that Gloria broke. We see her on the stage, with legions of fans cheering her on. We also see her receiving the claw-shaped award from the start of this video. Then, Gloria receives a letter, and she learns that her mother has committed suicide by jumping off a building, which this letter somehow has a picture of mid-jump, but whatever. After that, the radiant Gloria Von Gutten is now doused by sadness, and the audience and critics boo her, leading to her extreme mood swings. It was the catalyst that brought whatever Gloria suffers from to the forefront. The mood swings are personified in the image as Gloria with 2 faces, one angry and one almost laughing in a weird, almost scary kind of way. The plays once again provide some insight into Gloria's relationship with her mother, where after Gloria leaves on a ship, her mother makes a reference to killing herself in a comical way. It's both extremely funny and extremely sad. So, that brings us back to the core mechanic of the level, the mood switch. As I mentioned previously, there are two versions of the stage, one happy and one sad, and Raz has the ability to switch the mood by slapping this one stage light, decked out with the comedy and tragedy masks. It's a very literal interpretation of bipolar disorder and mood swings that helps us really understand and connect with Gloria. Also, just as an interesting little tidbit, there are only 2 levels in Psychonauts where we visit a person's mind and we don't actually find them inside their mind in some capacity. Gloria's Theater is one, and the other is Lungfishopolis. Whether that represents a lack of ability to control one's thoughts isn't exactly clear, but it does make some sense for both Linda and Gloria. Linda, who was being brainwashed, and Gloria, who can't control her moods, so Raz goes in and controls them to set the scenes. So, alongside the 2 different moods, there are different sets you can pull out. Each set has a happy and a sad version, making for 6 different sets total, and they all have their own figments as well. As I mentioned, the level designers made great use of such a small space by having the players control the backdrops to progress the story. There are 2 other important characters in this level I haven't really talked about: Jasper, aka the Phantom, and Becky. Jasper, as I briefly said, is a critic who sits in a nearby balcony. I think Jasper represents a few different things. Firstly, he is the critics who booed Gloria after her mental breakdown. Secondly, I think Jasper represents a part of Gloria and the way that she looks at herself. Coming up in such an abusive environment, it makes sense that Gloria would be overly harsh on herself, and those feelings come through from Jasper. Jasper is also particularly nasty to Bonita Soleil, which also explains why he's the Phantom as well, trying to stop Bonita at any cost. If Gloria gets her sunshine back, he will lose control over the mind. It further emphasizes the struggle in Gloria's own mind as the 2 sides, the 2 emotions, tussle for control. The other main character in the mind is Becky, who is the stage manager / director for the plays. She mainly serves as the person you talk to run new scenes, but I actually think she might represent Gloria herself, almost like a self-insert into her own mind. This is purely speculation, so take it with a grain of salt, or a whole truckload of salt, but Becky finds herself caught between the critic and the stage. She literally is standing between the 2. She is anxious as hell, and while she wants to make the show good, she is easily swayed by the opinions of Jasper, who's constantly belittling her productions. She is Gloria herself, caught between the moods she's experiencing on the outside, unable to control what's happening, which explains why she seems so anxious and also somewhat high-strung. There is actually one other pretty important character, but she spends most of the level off stage, and that is Bonita Soleil, Gloria Von Gutten's inner sunshine. Her being off stage is a pretty on-the-nose representation of the fact that Gloria is unable to currently feel happy. With Bonita out of the way, the shows will still go on, but they just don't shine like they could. But at the end of the stage, when Bonita is finally able to perform, we see that she shines, lighting up the entire theater in a way that's extremely reminiscent to the way that Gloria shines on stage in her second memory vault. I think there might be the most distinct characters in Gloria's Theater out of any level in the game, actually, not including all the individual agents or rainbow squirts in the Milkman Conspiracy, since they're all essentially the same. The many actors of Gloria's mind take on a double role. Firstly, they are actors, duh. When Raz asks for a certain script to perform, it is performed regardless of the backdrop or mood, which is important for progressing the level. In a happy mood, all the actors run around and act all cheery, but when the mood is switched, the actors then turn into enemies, attacking Raz and frankly just being really annoying. There are 3 different kinds of enemies. The humanoid actors will spin like Beyblades and hurl themselves towards Raz. The dogs will breathe fire, and the bats will shoot Raz. They are all very annoying to deal with, but thankfully manageable. However, they get much worse later when it comes to the level's boss fight. So the progression in the level takes on the form of finding new scripts to perform. At the start of the level there are only 2, and both are completely unimportant. The first script that we actually need is The Night of Joy, which the critic Jasper gives us for some reason. I guess it is slightly better than the rest of the plays in his eyes. If you play The Night of Joy on the second version of the happy set, it plays as intended, with a knight riding by in the background. But if you go to the sad version, where the knight typically rides, there's a dragon. So if you play the Knight of Joy there, the knight runs into the dragon, killing it, which allows Raz to climb up and unlock a new script. And that's how it goes. I'm not going to go through it all because honestly, that is more tedious than just playing the level, but it does take some trial and error to get everything done. But finally, after completing all the scripts needed, we unlock the hot air balloon that will take us up to the only other area of Gloria's mind, the catwalks. The catwalks aren't really a long section, but they do feature our first non-actor enemies in the level. Similar to how the sensors in Mia's mind had hats on, the sensors in Gloria's mind are decked out for the area, dressed like flowers, matching the headpieces seen on the actors, but also seen in the level's first memory vault. The catwalks do add a nice change of pace though from the section that came before it, and it features some fighting, some platforming, and eventually it leads up to our boss fight encounter with the Phantom. Before the fight though, we do come to a section where the Phantom is blocking our path, and the game does some soft tutorialing on how we will fight the boss momentarily. To get to the Phantom out of our way, we have to put a candle in a spotlight and light it up, because phantoms, they hate light. It's similar to how previous boss fights have basically shown you all the tools you need to fight them before the fight begins. It's a nice touch and one that I genuinely always appreciate seeing, even going back to some of the earliest adventure games like The Legend of Zelda, where dungeons will give you a little preview of how to beat the boss before you encounter them, like the Dodongo, who you have to beat using bombs, and the dungeon beforehand makes sure to give you the bombs that you need. So, after we clear the path, it's revealed that the Phantom is in fact Jasper. I know, big surprise, crazy reveal. It's now a good time for me to admit that I really hate the Phantom of the Opera. It seems like a good time to me. I'm not a fan of that or any Andrew Lloyd Webber shows, which might be sacrilegious because I have the same name as him, but man, I do not like him. I also don't like Jasper, so let's beat him up. Jasper is a pretty simple boss fight, but I will say I recently played the PS2 version of Psychonauts and he was absolutely brutal. The PS2 version of the game is incredibly hard for no reason, but the PC version where I recorded all this footage that you're seeing right now was nice and easy. Once again, the rule of threes is king with these boss fights, and there are 3 candles we have to grab, which we then put into 3 spotlights to knock Jasper down so we can beat him up. All the while avoiding Jasper and his little fountain pens that shoot words. Fun fact, in a video Tim Schafer said that all of the words Jasper shoots are from a review of the movie White Chicks, which is pretty funny. In all honesty, the hardest part of this boss fight was between each candle, when you actually have to jump down and beat up Jasper and he summons minions, and those dumb fire-breathing dogs he summons are absolutely the bane of my existence, because if you catch fire, you then have to run around, wasting time to hit the boss, making the whole thing take so much longer. My strategy for this fight is to just ignore all the summoned enemies and just hit the boss. It makes everything go so much smoother. And that is that. With Jasper defeated, Bonita Soleil is able to take the stage again, shining a light on Gloria's mind so that when we leave her, she seems more herself again, and she decides that it's time for her to leave Thorny Towers. Now listen, I won't sugarcoat it. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I can understand why this level is pretty widely disliked, especially directly following up a level like the Milkman Conspiracy. There's a certain level of tedium that's just a part of the experience, but for me, Gloria's Theater might just be the best example of making a mind come to life. By that I mean it takes the character and envisions what a world in their head might look like, faults and all. Gloria's Theater is so simple, but that's what makes it so strong. It really emphasizes the important points while making an incredibly unique level, unlike any other one in this game. In total, there are 157 figments, 2 mental vaults, 5 pieces of emotional baggage, and for the first time in the game, there are 7 mental cobwebs. All the levels before this one had 5, but after this point they go on to have 7, except for one that only has 3, so let's get ready for a little change. If you've made it this far into the video, this probably isn't going to be controversial, but if you for some reason just skipped here to see my ranking, you might find this odd. But I'm actually going to give Gloria's Theater an S rank on my tier list. The level just doesn't pull any punches, and for me, it manages to hold up so well, especially on replays as you dig more and more into the level. I feel like if I were ranking this level on my first playthrough, it would go somewhere different. But with so much time passed since my first playthrough, it just feels right to rank the level where I think it deserves, and that is among the best in the game. Next time, we will be going a little deeper into Thorny Towers to meet a few more of the patients who call the abandoned asylum home. First off, Fred Bonaparte. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw and you haven't watched the other videos in this series, then please feel free to go back and watch those. There's a handy link to the playlist down in the description below. If you want to find me other places online, I stream pretty frequently over on my Twitch, and you can also find me on my website where I write fairly often, but I probably should do that more. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.